basically, I'm here to share from IRRI's perspective and what we have done. How does the activities within the IDTs, in particular N4X, in the case of this presentation, can be integrated into what we have already done, and also some still moving. So how do we get ourselves together to move towards centralized operations? Okay, so just just to kind of like put things perspective, I think Yang Hua give a nice overview of what the N4X IDT is about. But if you are thinking, because she puts it in a perspective quite technical in a sense, but if you want to imagine what success looks like within this IDT, is that I think the goal of this IDT is to institutionalize modern breeding practices to a point where the services that support these practices will be provided professionally, whereby the data generated by these services and practices are the driver for breeding improvement and genetic gain. So if there is one thing that you need to remember about this IDT, is basically it works hand in hand, as John puts it just now, with ABI and some of the other IDTs in the GI space, in the sense that we want to modernize and professionalize the breeding and research operations. So Yang Hua also touched a bit on what are the different work packages entails within the IDT. And so basically, like, I don't know how to get this out. Oh, okay. So basically, developing cost-efficient core services for high quality and faster turnaround, data generation, strategic coordination across CG, which I think John elaborates a lot just now, narrow capacity development, and also quality assurance through standard operating procedures. And all this will be the work will be coordinated or will be carried out in an environment of operational excellence, where continuous improvement will be the core processes that will drive this whole thing, because you need to be continuously improvement to always generate improve services and work in an operational excellence space. Okay, so back to IRRI. As you probably know or not, in IRRI, all the research support services is housed under a platform called Integrative Research Support, or IRS here in short. So this started to happen way back in 2017 with the aim of enhancing resources and opportunities for the Institute. As you can see here, the units are formed that are within IRS now is in the beginning scattered all over the Institute. Some even report to the DG office. For example, this farm unit, the experimental station, seed health unit, and research infrastructure reports to DDG office previously, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Cross-cutting operations, they were within the plant breeding unit, and the labs with the strategic innovation unit. So all three, all over the place. So what you can, so what was done in the beginning, just to get everybody together, is they identify what are the unit that needs to be together, where the services can be provided to all the researchers, breeders, and also other researchers as well. So basically, in the beginning, the exercise is just pulling all the resources and capacity under one roof. Then in 2019, the IRS platform was formed through a top-down instruction from the DG. So basically, DG sends out a memo to make it mandatory to form this platform, and also making it mandatory for all the researchers to use the services. So currently, this is how the research is organized in IRRI. So we have the Rice Breeding and Innovation Platform, the Integrative Research Support Platform, which is the centralized services, IRRI South Asia Research Center, and Sustainable Rice-Based Agri-Food Platform. So as you can see here, the research, the centralized services or shared services is considered as one of the platforms, one of the research platforms, equal standing, and we interacted throughout with the platform in terms of developing services, improving the services, bringing new services in, and also working hand in hand with the breeders in particular, and also the agronomists and all the other researchers on how the services can be provided according to what the clients, if you want to think about it, wants. So the objective of the platform is to cultivate a culture of excellence in the delivery of research services and support in IRRI and across the global IRRI network towards becoming the best-in-class integrated research support system. We have big plans. And I highlight the culture of excellence because when we started, this is basically what's missing. Everybody can work, not to say everybody doing the work is not a question. Everybody can work, do wonderful field prep, do grain analysis, hybridization, and everything, but there is like no cohesiveness. Everybody's kind of like working because people ask them to do certain things. So hence there's no drive towards becoming more professional. How do you integrate all these things? So then I kind of create, when I come in, I kind of create this vision of what a professional service look like. And I'll try to share some of this as we go along. And this is something that is not like totally unique to CG or IRRI even. It's been used in many, I think, research company, agriculture company, and so on. So, but not to say that it's easy as well. You'll see there are many challenges as we move towards this. So currently, these are all the services within the IRS platform. To date, I would say about 80% or almost 80% of the shared services have been captured by the platform. Since last year, we have embarked on bringing the rest. So we are moving towards 100% of all the research services within the IRS platform. And with that, we need to consolidate activity, obviously, and also do some staff consolidation as well. So the farm services, cross-cutting operations where hybridization, RGA, seed warehousing is here, IRRI service lab and genotyping service lab, seed health unit, research infrastructure and research compliance. This is where the EBS sits in, software development, and drone phenotyping. This is still not a service yet, but since we are moving towards mainstreaming drone phenotyping, this unit is brought in, and so we are kind of like developing still the service process that we need to do. So our vision is really, this is what it looks like. We want to provide an end-to-end breeding service, starting with seed inventory all the way to yield trial. And this is the data that's generated, is captured by EBS. We have genotyping and grain analysis phenotyping supporting the process throughout. And also all seeds will go through seed health unit as they go in or entering IRRI. So basically the idea is for the breeders to focus on the science, leaving the operations logistics to the shared services. And I think, and by centralizing all the research services, we can better utilize the resources, which leads to improved efficiency. Centralization also promotes standardization, because you have a team that does the same work over and over again, so you can do standardization, which in turn will promote quality data output. And starting last year, we created a system of planning and forecasting, and together with the breeding team, we started scrutinizing data accuracy in terms of how do you plan, because I think without a good planning system, it's very difficult for you to achieve work plan on the side of the operations as well. So essentially, all these activities will drive a professionalization of some sort to the service operations. So then we also have put down some principles to guide people on how to move within this environment. So number one, we establish a quality management system where all the SOPs, best practices are captured and managed through this. We, as I said, the DG sent out a memo where he made sure he made everyone use the services, the mandatory use of the services. So no more going out for services that can be done in-house, which was rampant before this. Everything is consolidated, infrastructure, facilities, activities, and staff. Infrastructure is more or less consolidated, and facilities as well. We are now doing more of the activities to bring in everything. So having 100% in the shared service unit or IRS. And with that, not all the staff, but basically staff that have been involved will need to come in as well. And so by doing this consolidation, no more, we hope to not have any more duplication, because that's just wastage. Where relevant, we outsource the services for better management. For example, the genotyping services is just being coordinated, but the actual work is done with Intertech or Agriplex and so on. And since last year, we made seasonal planning a compulsory activity. So all these things are done, although it sits within, this principle sits within the integrated research support, but these are clearly, obviously done in support of the rice breeding unit, because this is not something that can be done just on the research, on the centralized service only. For example, development of SOPs is done jointly with the breeding unit as well. We create teams that comprise of research support and breeding to develop SOPs that works both with the breeder as well. And planning and forecasting also is done hand in hand with the breeders, so that we are helping them to plan, and eventually this exercise will allow us to develop some form of forecasting capability. So we manage all this with, obviously there are a lot of challenges coming in and still facing challenges. And the biggest is the mindset challenge. That is the need to shift from a system that is already ingrained within the staff. So this is still a constant thing, because there's always people asking, why do we need to do this again and again, even after many, many years already. So I think another challenge is infrastructure and resource. There's a huge gap. I think when we think of providing a professional service, you also think of having good infrastructure, sufficient machinery resources, sufficient people resource with the right skills and so on. And so when you look at that, there are huge gaps between what you already have and where you want to go. And in IRRI, this is still a constant struggle. And the system and processes that are in place in most centers are not agile. You can't simply change, because if you are thinking of having costing some of these services, you really need to weed through many of the old systems that's in place, which are not very adaptable to what we want to do. And a lot of silos need to be broken down. There's always sometimes talks about them versus us, this is my team and all those things. So those things need to be broken down, and there is a lot of what I call me, myself, and I mentality. This is my budget, this is my staff, can you please entertain my request first? So it's just me. That needs to be, that's a huge challenge as well, which needs to be addressed. And we are still struggling with those things daily. So I saw this when I was just, Googling some stuff about change management, and I thought this is, I'm not sure who says this, but I think it's so relevant to what we are doing. The need to shift mindsets is the biggest block to successful transformation, and that's what we're trying to do by, I think, 1CG, under 1CG with the different IDTs. The key lies in making the shift in both individual and institutional at the same time. So I think here in this room, online, live audience, everyone here, we are responsible to make this change. We are the ones that will be driving the IDT as well. So we need to keep this in mind for a successful outcome of all the IDTs, not only in Forex. So the work that we have done in EiRI is actually very gradual. As I said, we started in 2017. We do it step by step, as shown here. We are still working on it, improving it daily. But I have to say that the support from the rice breeding leadership has allowed us to move quite far in terms of implementing everything that is required. And there are still things in the pipeline that we are thinking about adding to what we have already done. So one thing that is agreed upon between the rice breeders and integrative research support is that we agree that materials that we are working on belongs to the rice breeding innovation platform. So they are the ones that generate the materials, improve the materials, and so on. But the process of generating material, improving the material lies within the research support team. And so I think we want to create, what we're trying to create essentially is a system where things can be handed off from one team to another in a very transparent manner. People know exactly what's going to happen to their team, and they fully trust, each team trusts each other in handling those materials. I think if we can create that, then we can, then only some form of like an automatic system can arise from these two. I think this is something very important that we need to establish. So to recap, I think you have seen how EiRI, the setup that we have done in EiRI actually fully integrates with the N4X IDT goal, starting with modernization, cost-effective shared services, performance management system, generating and smart using the data, and of course implementation under work package 5. So in EiRI as well, the way we look at it is that everything we do can be packaged under an umbrella of continuous improvement processes. From the demand consolidation, how do we plan that, supply planning, activity consolidation, even to the mechanization, everything is looked at from this lens of continuous improvement. And this then the tools that drive operational excellence, which will lead to impactful research, which then upholds the mission, vision, and goals of EiRI. So it fits whatever we are trying to do, creating corporate identity that has been spelled out in the strategies of EiRI, and strategies on partnerships and so on. So it can be placed in this big kind of a vision board that we have. So I think that's the last slide. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharifa. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Do we have questions for Sharifa? Oh, Gustavo, you have a comment?
No, maybe I open for questions first, and then I can go on.
Okay. So do we have questions? Actually, I have a good question, which, if you don't mind me asking, Sharifa, you mentioned in the collaboration between the breeding team as well as the operations. Okay, to what extent were you able, and you mentioned also the change resistance. So to what extent was a lateral communication between all stakeholders done across the, let's say, the workforce, or should we say between both teams, between breeding and operations?
Oh, okay. In EiRI, what we did is, so there are the different platforms, but we have like a leadership team that both myself as head of the IRS platform, And the breeding operations manager, also part of my team, sits together with the rice breeders leadership team as well, every 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks there's meeting which we present the work that's going on the ground. And if we are having any problems, also we raise it then. Hans sits in that Hans chair that meeting, but now we have a different system, but basically Hans chair the meeting. So we have a permanent agenda there where we update what's going on the ground. If we have problems, if we are doing new initiatives, we also put it up there so people know exactly what's going on. And then weekly, the research operations teams that are doing the work on the ground, they have, and also the team from the breeders, the operation teams as well that sits with the breeding team. They also have a weekly meeting just to sort out things if there are problems. For example, now, as I was saying, we want to do more. We want to bring in more activity into IRS. So Cess, my breeding operations manager, she works very closely with the breeding team to explain what's going on. What are the processes that we want to do? What are the activities that's going to be brought in, and so on. So we work very closely. But but the resistance are less and less now that when we become more transparent. In the beginning, they are not quite sure what we want to do and so on, and people are so set in the ways. That's where the resistance come in. But as we break down the silos, we are more transparent. We show them exactly what we're doing. People are more accepting.
Thanks a lot, Sharifa. So, would you like to comment?
Yeah, I can. So, Sharifa, one of the from EIB perspective, and one thing that we always promoted is the capacity development, and goes either in terms of technical and management skills. And in this sense, I don't know if you may comment the importance of the operational excellence and the continuous improvement team that you established in IRRI, because similar as you have, IITA is in the process to implement that too. And I think that also we may think similar approach for Africa Rice and the national programs, CSIR and SARI.
Okay. As we started out, although the idea is to kind of train the continuous improvement, provide training on continuous improvement tools to the research operations, right? But as I showed you, some of the challenges are actually beyond the centralized services or the research operations team as well. So when I started our first training program with Teresa, I think she's here, I also bring in people from finance, people from HR to be part of the research team, because we have like three projects. So I think each of the team has people from HR, people from finance, just also to make them understand what we do, how do they contribute to the decision making and so on, and also teach them the tools, so that my aim is kind of like once you train that, once they see the tools could also be used beyond research, they would be more supportive. And I think we've seen that as well. In the second batch, we then bring more. In the first batch as well, we have some breeders, assistant breeders and so on, but we have more of that in the second batch, because we also realize that once they know the tools, they are excited by it. They see ways to look at problems differently. The word of mouth, I think in IRRI there's a lot of word of mouth spread about this training. A lot of people want to join, and again our approach is on problem solving. So we look at jointly as well at the breeders, what are the services that need to be improved, and those are the source of our projects in both the training and in each group that is part of the training, looking at the problems. There are both from the operations end and also the breeding end. So that way, again, you kind of force them to work together, but it's not like force, not happy force, but they now see each other's work. They now see that how both parties contribute to solve a problem that is common to them. I mean, each problem has a point in both operations and breeding as well. So yeah, so now we have done that. So this year, how we want to do the training is to look at the different levels, because previously the cluster leads are already trained and the supervisors, so now we want to go one level down. So eventually the aim is to have everyone that's involved in research operations in particular, but also to a certain extent, the breeders as well are trained in the tools and of CI. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Sharifa. Any more questions regarding the IDTs and the implementations? Alec?
Oh, hi, Sharifa. Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. One of the things that we were discussing this morning was regarding planning, especially at the protocol level. Are you guys involved from the inception when the breeders are developing the protocols? And also related to that, how often do you meet to plan the field work and who is involved, and then how much lead time do you have before implementation?
The protocols development, the SOPs are done jointly, actually. So, for example, the hybridization protocol, RGA, and all those things are done jointly. Rulix, which is the cluster lead for cross-cutting operations, he developed small teams to look at the different processes. So each team has a component, operations guy there and also breeders there. So they develop the SOPs jointly. And then all these SOPs are managed under the quality management system, as I say. For planning, what we have done, as I said, starting last year was a seasonal. Initially, we want to go for annual planning. That's too, we realized that that's too much. So we now attempt to do seasonal planning. Again, my breeding operations manager, so we know what are the activities that needs to be planned. So we work very closely hand in hand, because I think planning is something that's not a common thing. So we work really closely, and also referring as well, because sometimes if you give an empty sheet, nobody knows how to fill it in. So we also look for the past 3 years, for example, and see what are the numbers, but then work with them whether do you really need 360 crosses, something like that, and so on. And every month we do a planning accuracy meeting. So to show them that, hey, you planned 500 crosses last month, for example, but we actually meet only 300 only. So what's going on? So we kind of try to improve it as we go along. Lead time, as I say, we do seasonal planning. So we started this planning process, I would say August last year, to be used to kickstart in January this year. So because it's the first time you do extensive planning like that, so that's why it takes a lot of time. Before this, a small amount, what we did before we did this extensive planning is I introduced service requests like Google Sheet, which can automatically fit into an Excel sheet that allows us to plan from the service end. So we don't make the breeder plan. They are still kind of request a service as and when they need, but from their request, we kind of generate a plan for them. But then the planning accuracy, when we did that after one whole year, we realized that it's very off. We cannot rely that to do an annual planning for next year. So we thought we attempt now is to do planning by sitting with the breeders side by side and help them to do the planning based on their program and so on. Do you understand? I mean, it's a tough thing to do, but yes.
So Sharifa, to this question, sorry, Ali, just to add to this question too. When you talk about planning, and what you did is planning the activities that you have defined based on the SOPs. Is that correct?
Yes.
So I
for
think
example,
that this.
Yes, exactly. So for example, hybridization, let's give that. So the crosses. Then you go, so who have crosses to make next season? So then you go to individuals, so let's say Damien and person A, person B, person C. So then you sit with them. So then they look at their program, how many crosses do they need to meet, to make in the coming season. So we get the number and plug it into our spreadsheet. That is the kind of planning that we do. So based on that number, we then work backwards to see what are the resources needed for us to deliver the numbers that they have provided.
Is this resource goes to, for instance, land allocation, etc.?
Yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, Alec, I think that's exactly what we discussed this morning. No? Yeah.
Presentation. In your own scenario, you are dealing with a monocrop. Why in IITA here, we have more than one crop?
Yes.
And you have maybe some challenges in dealing with just a monocrop. How? I don't know if what you experience in your area, how is it going to be applicable or operationalized in this our institutes where we are dealing with more than one crop? Don't know how you will advise us, because you are having just a crop, maybe, and then let's say one challenge. But in our case here, we are having more than one, and many challenges. Can you advise? Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, I can see, I believe it's still possible, but I can also see the challenge will be multiplied many times as well. I think what is important is for us to put a structure in place first, because like, for example, being one crop, you could just have a team that works on that crop. But I think when you look at multiple crops, I guess number one, you need to prioritize which crops to be looked at first, and also a proper structure. Probably you need a breeding operations manager, because I have a breeding in IRRI, we have a breeding operations manager. So perhaps you need a breeding operations manager for the 6 crops, 6 level or 3 levels like that. Each of them focus on one crop or 2 crops only. So that way the platform leader or operations leader right on top have a handle on everything. So I think for one person and replicate to a certain extent, you need to have a team for each crop, or maximum 2 crops maybe, because if you are handling 6 crops, 7 crops, 10 crops with the same team, like what IRRI has done, probably that would be a bit too much. So I think it's important to set a proper structure on how the operational team would look like, would need to be for you to be able to manage all these things. But I think it's not impossible. Many companies set up multi-crop research center all over the world. So I think if we can study how they do those things, and these are already run at a very commercial scale, so much bigger than what we are facing in most of CG centers. So if we can study how they have done that, I think it will be a good exercise, and that we can see how we can emulate some of this into centers like IITA, who's carrying more than one crop. So, but definitely not impossible.
Okay, thanks, Sharifa. Lenin, you have a comment? It's not working.
I guess it's more of a question rather than a comment. Sharif, I just wanted to know in terms of the process of moving towards centralization. Is there an extra budget that is required to fund the process, or it's a matter of an administrative restructuring of what is currently existing? Because with if there is a budget involved or an extra funding that is required, again, if we are to apply it in national programs or most of these centers, it becomes an issue. So I wanted to know from your own side, is it involving any extra budget, or it's a matter of just restructuring what is there and the resources are still sufficing?
As I was saying, during the formation in 2017, I was not there yet. But looking at what we have now, there would need to have to be some budget, because I think that you probably need some additional resources and so on. But more importantly, rather than the budget, the putting together of the teams that you want. Because even, let's say, for example, the cross-cutting operation, as I was saying, in the beginning, they are with the rice breeding team. In rice breeding team, they also do the same thing, that they are supporting the rice breeders as well. So now, when they are there, there's a budget for them to work, right, to support the rice breeders. So when they are moved out into IRS platform, they bring over the budget as well. So there's no additional budget on top of that. It's just that they're bringing over what that has been allocated previously from where they were into the new platform. And then as you increase your services as well, that's where the budgeting process needs to be in place and so on. What are the resources needed? So that's where we would ask for budget for annual budget, but then we also practice the full cost recovery. So we need to work out the cost of each services, which can then be recovered and pay back into the institute's budget. So I think the full cost recovery makes it not to say profitable. We are not. We are still not recovering 100%, but at least 70% of what has been utilized are recovered annually. 60-70%. I think this year, last year we made about 60+ % recovery. So that's how the budget part is being run. I think if the budget only flows one way, I agree with you, it would be very tough, because then you have to keep on replenishing the budget because there's no budget flowing back in. So a system of full cost recovery needs to be in place for it to be manageable and sustainable.
Thanks, Sharifa. John, you wanted to comment here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sharifa, for the presentation. Very informative. My question is, I'm sure during this time you've recorded some wins. Have you celebrated any such wins? And have you recorded some testimonials of breeders who are happy with the system that you can share with us?
You're saying, how do we celebrate the wins?
Yeah, I'm saying, have you celebrated any of the quick wins that you've realized so far?
Oh, okay. Yes. Actually, yeah, I have to say, sometimes we forgot to celebrate the wins, right? But what we do, and since I would say this, if I can say, for the CI training that we have done, I think since the first one even, at the end of the training period where the projects are being solutions for the problems that we have identified under the projects, we have kind of have a half-day seminar where the leadership of EiRI also attended, so that they know what are the challenges, how do we work together to solve those things. The leadership includes the DG up to the level of DG. They all are invited and attended the program, so that even the staff kind of realize that their contributions are being appreciated, and they are part of a team that solves all these things. So and of course during this lockdown period it's difficult to actually celebrate those things, but annually we've started also to, instead of having celebrations at individual platform levels, we now combine everything, because people now realize that the platforms are more there for administrative purposes, but rather when it comes down to working, we actually work as one single team. So everybody come in and do the celebration together. I don't know if I answered that question correctly.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Sharifa. Any more questions, comments? Thanks a lot.
Amir, I have one. Sorry, I have one question to Sharifa, and maybe this can help you also to during the discussions. Sharifa, I think the benefit, the expected benefit for these, and you presented well, is maybe improving or reducing operational cost, improving data quality, whatever. Have you or received, and I know that you were not there, you mentioned that before, but do you have any examples on the results, or at least feedback on, I don't know, better heritability or any thing that can prove that these ways of work is more efficient than the way that it used to be? Oh, okay. Yes, I don't have it here, but yes, and also it's evident by the fact that a lot of the breeders now want us to do many more things for them. You know, like we in the beginning we don't have so many of those services as I put there, but then they would keep coming. Like for example, previously we never do any emasculation work for them, but then they also come to us like, can you guys provide this service? So when that happens, they usually provide, it's kind of like a process of technology transfer where they train the operations team to do this, and then we learn from them and then develop it into a process. So we are now in the process of mainstreaming DSR yield trial as well. So I think that speaks volume. You start out with fewer services than where you end up with, because people know, as I was saying, that there's trust already, that they want you to do many more services that still sits with them. So it goes on like that. But I have specific data as well, since I don't have it here, and I could share that with you guys at some point. But from the breeders, we know that they are happy with the deliveries, and they and evidence is they want us to do many more services that was not part of the service before, and they're willing to train the research support team so that we can deliver the services widely, not just like a single unit delivery kind of thing. So yeah.
Thanks a lot. I think the more we capitalize on success stories and share those experiences, the better, I guess, we all learn from each other and get to the point of more developments and improvements across different parties, different centers, different even stakeholders within the same center. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Okay, we're basically near the end of the day, and